Hello everyone, Assalamu alaikum. This is me Urooj and I'm the host of this live Earth Day session. So hello to everyone. So as we all know that today is Earth Day and we are going for the panel discussion of with our climate activists. So this event is calling for the recognition of Earth Day. So आज का जो हमारा basically purpose है वो Earth Day के object पर है जिसमें हम discussion करेंगे that what is the Earth Day and why we are celebrating Earth Day. So इसका purpose ये है कि हम if I talk about define करूँगी because we have also invited our two guest speakers. So I will just say little bit. तो अगर अपनी बात करूँ according to me तो Earth Day जो है अगर मैं अपनी बात करूँ तो I have as many topics like if I talk about the plantation, if I talk about the reuse of plastic, if I talk about the reuse of plastic, if I talk about trees cutting, if I talk about the climate change, तो अगर मैं plantation की बात करूँ या अगर मैं प्लास्टिक रीयूज की बात करूं तो प्लास्टिक जो है वो हमारे एनवायरनमेंट को बहुत इफेक्ट कर रही है. इट्स इफेक्टिंग टू मच अवर एनवायरनमेंट. तो हम जो है इसका कम से कम यूज कैसे करें बिकॉज अगर मैं अपनी ही बात करूं तो अगर मैं कहीं मार्केट्स एरियाज में या मैं कहीं आउटसाइड या कहीं बाहर जाके अगर देखूं तो मुझे बहुत सारी जो है प्लास्टिक की जो प्लास्टिक रैपर्स होती हैं या प्लास्टिक शॉपर्स होती हैं वो मुझे देखने को मिलती हैं. सो इफ मैं अगर बताना चाहूँ कि जो प्लास्टिक है वो हमारे एनवायरनमेंट को कितना इफेक्ट कर रही है. इफ आई से दैट अगर मैं ट्रीज कटिंग की बात करूँ तो हम ये अपने फायदे के लिए कर रहे होते हैं कि ट्रीज कटिंग अगर हम करते हैं तो हम अपने फायदे के लिए कर रहे होते हैं बट हम इसका बिहाइंड जो इसकी जो इफेक्ट कितना पड़ रहा है हमारे अर्थ को हमारे एनवायरनमेंट को ये हम नहीं देखते हैं. तो हम कितना इसको कम से कम करने की कोशिश करें. We have to plant more and more trees and we from it we can save our environment. We can save our environment. Like, hello Ria, how are you?
Oh, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for taking your precious time for us. And she is our guest speaker from Spain. And before I want to welcome her and I want to call her, so I want to introduce herself. She is Fraser from Spain and she is the youth mentor and she is the founder of the association of Strait Up from in Spain. So yes, Ria, now it's over to you to describe and present about the Earth Day and share your thoughts that what you are thinking about the Earth Day and why we are celebrating. Yes.
Well, thank you. I'd just like to say that I'm always inspired by your work, and it's very exciting to be able to participate in this day with you. And what brought me to your work in our shared interest is in bicycles as a transportation alternative, a sustainable way to avoid fossil fuels, and to also have a more sustainable and a more pleasant experience in our city streets. So this is the work that I do, is to try to encourage more people to leave their cars parked, to enjoy the physical exercise, the social exercise, and the beauty it is to move around on a bicycle. So especially for women who maybe don't always have the opportunity to move in this way. And I feel it's a very concrete and personal step we can make towards climate change, to think about how we move through our cities and what kind of cities we want for our families and for our children.
Yes, Riya. And I also want to tell this thing to you all that if anyone wants to ask any question, so they can ask from her. और अगर किसी को कोई किसी के तासुरात या अगर किसी को फीडबैक या क्वेश्चन अगर किसी को पूछना हो तो वो रिया से पूछ सकते हैं। हमारी जो गेस्ट स्पीकर है वो आपको इसके जवाबात प्रोवाइड करेंगी और हम पूरी कोशिश करेंगे कि अपने वक्त के मुताबिक हम आपको इन सारे आपके जो सवालात के जवाबात हैं वो हम आपको प्रोवाइड करें। If anyone wants to ask any question, so they can ask from comment section. Thank you. Uh, and our 22nd theme of Earth Day is to that invest in our planet. Our Earth Day 22nd theme is invest in our planet.
Sorry, did you ask a question? I lost your connection for one moment. If you give me some direction, I can know how you'd like me to proceed with the conversation.
Yes, Riya. If anybody asks to any questions from her, so they can ask in comment section. And
Please.
very happy to see you, dear. Thank you for your precious time. I'm very happy to see you, dear. Because I listened your work. You are doing cycling and more activities. So I'm very inspired from it.
Me too. Maybe while we're waiting, can you tell me what you're doing currently with bicycles in your girls' cafe?
Yes, we are doing bicycle ride in every Sunday, and still we are doing ride in every Sunday in Ramadan. So our second ride is on Sunday, which is in village seaside. So we are going there, and we will do our activity of plantation, and we will do our activity of sea cleaning that we have also did before. So we will again do this activity of sea cleaning and beach cleaning. So this is our current activity which we are doing, and our ride of cycling is we are doing the cycling ride in every Sunday.
Yes. Wonderful. I love it. It's nice to see the photos of all the girls going out together and supporting each other, helping each other learn and get stronger. It's lovely to see.
Yeah, it's very hard to do, but our girl is doing, and they have more power to do these whole things, and still they are doing, because some pupils parents support is not there, and many issues are there, but still they are coming and they are doing this. They continued their cycling ride, and they are still coming. So it's really good that they have as much power to face all the pupils, that what they are doing, they are just ignoring these old people. Because if I talk about Lyari, so Lyari is an habited part of Karachi, which we are doing cycling over here. So it's very difficult to do cycling, and still we are doing, so it's really mean a lot.
I was speaking in this talk yesterday in Turkey where you had trouble connecting and everyone had trouble connecting, but we were discussing just that we can be good examples for the next generation when we make the effort to go out cycling even when the conditions are very difficult. Because then when policymakers and other people see us doing that, there's more influence to then help the infrastructure be built that is supportive for more cycling, and to see the children see us making it possible, and more people will come out in the future. Hello.
Hello, Mr. Tofiq Pasha. How are you?
I'm very well. My apologies for the tardiness.
No worry. Now, he is our second guest speaker. So, Mr. Tofiq Pasha, आप अपने जो तासुरात हैं, हम briefing दें Earth Day के ऊपर कि
I'm Tofiq Pasha, and I don't know much I can say about myself. I'm somebody who's lived with the outdoor world all my life.
Hello. Maybe connection issues.
Some trouble with the connection, I think.
Yes, I also think like that. Hello. I think maybe connectivity issues there.
Mm. Hopefully he will join us again soon.
Yes, he's our second guest speaker, Mr. Tofiq Pasha, and he's environmentalist.
Mm. I can tell you more about our cycling project here in Spain, if it
Yeah,
would be a
sure.
good time.
Yeah, sure,
Sir?
you can. Yeah,
Well, the Spanish Federation for Cycling here, we have a lot of infrastructure and support for cycling as a sport for high-level athletes, but not so much for just amateur people who want to enjoy cycling as a lifestyle. But finally, the Federation has made a platform online so that people can find each other and find local rides. And when we saw locally here that this internet option was available to us, we started organizing rides and advertising them on this platform so that people could find us. And it turned out that many people wanted to join, but without this support, they didn't have the way to find us. And now that they
yeah,
do, we've been able to join our rides. But I'll hand the conversation back over to our other guest speaker now that he's connected.
yeah. Yes, sir. Hello.
Hello.
Again, connect.
Still problems, no?
Yeah, it's still a problem.
Hmm. Then I'll continue and I'll tell you that
Yeah,
once women felt that they could find each other and go out in the safety of numbers, people felt much more comfortable to ride their bikes. They felt supported, that if they had a mechanical problem, that somebody would be able to help them, or if they didn't know the way, that they would be together with the group. And this helped people feel really safe. It also made it more fun and more social.
yeah,
And
yeah,
as soon as we had a group together that could attract more people, now once it's big enough finally that it's visible, people come out and join us. And it's made a big difference because now these people start using their bicycle on a day-to-day level as well, not just for sports, but for
yeah,
transportation, to take their children to school, to go to the store, to run errands, to go to their appointments. And so for every bicycle we can put on the street is one less car on the street. So this is
oh,
less pollution, of course, but it's also less
yeah,
space. Parked cars take a lot of space away from pedestrians or away from the space that children can use to play or that elderly people can use to walk. And so it makes the city a much more pleasant place to be if we can have less cars and more
yes,
bikes.
I agree. Yes, I agree with it.
Mm. There's a big social aspect as well. When you're on your bicycle, you can stop and talk to your neighbors, enjoy the environment, notice the weather, stop and say hello to people along the way, and be much more aware of your community. When you're in your car, you're in a bubble, and you're
Yeah,
protected from people, but you're also isolated from people, that you don't stop and have conversations with people. You don't notice how other people are doing in their day-to-day, and you don't notice the climate or the environment because you're in this protected bubble. And I think that if you're on your bicycle, you're aware of the change of climate. You're aware of the seasons, the sun and the rain and the wind, and this helps you be much more conscious of what's necessary for climate change.
yes, I'm also agree with it, and I also saw your group photo on Instagram, and I was very exciting that I also want to join your group in Spain. So I'm, and I also agree with it that people should avoid these old things like cars and what other vehicles. So they should also start doing. They should also start this from the ride from bicycling, and I also like agree with it.
Mm. Of course, it's good for your health as well. And when you're healthy, you also take care of yourself and what you eat, and you make different choices about what you buy. And all these things have an impact on climate change as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Hello.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
not only do I spend all my time in the outdoors, but it's mostly outdoors in the boonies, and I always have internet problems. So even right now, I'm on a small hill way out.
Yeah, I understand.
So I hope it works now. I've put everything off and turned it all on and everything. So happy Mother Earth's Day to all of you and everyone watching. And
Thank
I
you.
hope we can make that effort of investing into Mother Earth and in the future of our children's children.
If anybody want to ask any questions, so they can ask in comment section. Again, connectivity issue, I think. So
Hmm. Do you have any questions that we could answer for the listeners who maybe are too shy to put a question out? Your people local there, what would they like to hear us speak about? Is there something, a topic that you think they would like to hear our opinions on?
no, I don't have any questions. So I know about your work and your foundation. So if any other people have any questions, so they can ask. Anyone who have any questions? Yeah, I have one question.
Yes.
I want to ask that how you joined your journey of that how you made your association, and I know it's difficult. It's very difficult. That how how's your journey about the behind of it?
Well, I still don't know how I started my association. Like everything, it's been a strange journey that just came out of my own personal interest. Where I live in Tarifa, Spain, is the very, very south of Europe. I'm only 14 kilometers from Africa. So this idea of the two continents, of two different worlds meeting, and the freedom of movement that we don't have across the borders here was always something that weighs heavy on my heart. That Europeans can move, but the people from the other continents can't come here. And for me, the bicycle is really a symbol of this freedom of movement that many people don't have, and the political problems that we have between countries. So I began to dream of what kind of a project that I could do to bring young people together from different countries so that we could know each other, respect each other, have good relations more. And I thought that a bicycle was a great way to
Yeah,
do this, because when you're riding a bike, it doesn't matter what language you speak. It doesn't matter what culture you come from. It doesn't matter what religion you are. Everybody feels the same way. They just feel this freedom when they're riding their bike. So I started to try to make a project with my neighbors in Morocco. But in order to do that, I had to build an association and build some infrastructure that could hold that. And that's what drove me to be able to do the paperwork and the work that I needed to do to start the association. And through this work, through the Erasmus program in Europe, I've been able to do some projects with other countries and doing this through with bicycles. But it was because of this need.
yeah,
That's the only thing that will ever make us strong enough to do the hard work that's involved to create an association, which you know about where you are as well, that it has to become from a personal desire. Otherwise, there's always so many barriers to get started in this kind of work. But if you feel passionate about what you want to do and the change you want to see in the world, then you find the strength to do all the hard work that's involved to make the structure.
yes. Rian, also heard about your kids. So I think you are married. So is it difficult for you to riding a bicycle in streets or roads? So
I always find a time and a way because it's a habit for me now. So now that I'm committed to it personally, I always find a way because it's just part of my day-to-day life now. If I need to go somewhere, I take my bike. And now it's just a habit. And this is the only way we can really make change, no, is to first it has to be conscious, a conscious decision until it becomes part of your lifestyle and part of your habits. And that's through repetition and through support and having other people that help you along the way. I share my bikes a lot with my children. I have 2 boys and they also use their bikes for transportation and to move around, to go to school and to go to their appointments and their activities. And so we just make it part of our day-to-day routine.
yeah, it's really good. Nice to hear it about you.
Hello again.
Hi.
Hello.
I'm so sorry. I've turned my Wi-Fi off and now I'm hoping to work on just my phone signals. So let's see. It seems to be working better up till now. When I was in my younger days in Karachi, Pakistan, where I live and where I've grown up, the bicycle was generally a mode of transport for the lower income people. They would rely on cycles. Over time, the cycle has been replaced by the motorbike and then cars. There were never so many cars or motorcycles on the streets. And then the bicycle almost disappeared from our streets. And as a kid, I remember that we all used to get together early morning or late in the evening and go out cycling. It was a regular thing. And that culture completely disappeared till a few years ago when little groups of cyclists started coming around. And mashallah, today in Karachi, there's a lot of groups of cyclists. And of course, our pride and joy, the Lyari Girls Cafe, is, and it is because there is a lot of culture, imposed culture that you have had to fight to be able to reclaim your space, or at times even create your space. And the work that I see you people doing, apart from the cycling, that is commendable. And I would always want to support anybody in whatever way that I can. Sometimes it's just by saying a pleasing word that makes all the difference. So, considering where today the planet is and the health of the planet, I think any initiative that can help reduce our carbon footprint is welcome. So I don't know how I'm going to do my long distances, but I sure would like to ride a bike too. You know, growing up, it used to be a thing. I mean, the first thing you wanted to do was learn how to ride a bicycle. And it used to be a challenge when you were about 6, 7 years old. So, ma'am, I wish you also all the very best in all your endeavors. And thank you to the Lyari girls who've brought us all together today to talk about Mother Earth and about the planet and its health and what each one of us individually and then we can do collectively for it.
Mm. I have a question for you in Pakistan.
Sure.
Here in Europe, I feel like environmental issues are more urgent, but not as important to people as they were in the past. that now we've been worried about COVID, we're worried about economics, now we have a war in Ukraine, and the environment never seems to get the attention that it needs with the urgency. And I wonder if this is just an European problem or if you feel the same way.
Well, here in Pakistan and Southeast Asia, now we are the countries who are going to be most affected by climate change, and we are already affected by climate change through food security. Our weather patterns have changed enough to start affecting the food crops, and our food crops are either failing or are not doing as well as they used to 5 years ago. And that is, I talk about food as well as the fruit and everything else that comes along with it, but I'm specifically talking about food. We've been affected by drought, we are being affected by floods, we are being affected every way due to climate change. Unfortunately, the economic conditions in our countries where such a huge population lives below the poverty line, it's, the problem is food. And how does a man or a woman, how does a family feed itself and clothe itself and protect itself are so important that climate change, though the governments have done bits and pieces over it, but we are lagging way behind everybody else. And in Pakistan specifically, I think we are a little behind the rest of Southeast Asia as well, which is very worrying and horrifying, because the signs are very clearly visible, and food security is going to be the biggest issue that Pakistan is going to, and as it is, water security has become a problem. And so water security and then food security, because of less water and because of the changing weather patterns, we've got very large population. I don't know when we really counted the population, but they say there's 220 million people. It's probably much more than that. How are we going to feed them? And as it is, economically, we are so behind and so stuck in various things. We don't have enough exports. We are not an oil-producing country. We buy our oil. We buy everything. And we are in an economic turmoil as we speak. So climate change is going to be devastating, unfortunately. It's staring us in the face.
Mm. How do you remain hopeful and continue doing your work?
Well, it's a tough one. It's a tough one, and it's remaining hopeful when there is apathy, when there are people who refuse to understand the problem, forget the solutions. A huge population of uneducated people, a major problem with air, soil, and water pollution. And it's not going away anytime soon, it's just getting worse. It's extremely difficult to remain hopeful. The only problem is that I don't have an option. There are times when I get very disappointed and I just sit down and say, now what? But then I have to. It's an IOU to the planet for all the resources that I have used. I've lived up to my age. I'm 35 years old, and I've used a lot of resources. I have to, and for normal people, it would be okay if they can at least replenish what they have used. But that's not good enough for me. I have to give back for more than just one person. And I have children, and my children have children. Um, I have no options. I have to work for it. What gives me hope in real terms is when I see part of the younger generation. It can never be all of them or half of them. It'll only be a few of them um, who are now dedicating. There's much more awareness today than there was in our time. We didn't even realize there was a problem with the environment when I was growing up in the 70s and the 80s. Most people didn't, and there was some of us who were talking about planting trees and greenery and growing your own food. And so the interest that the younger generation is taking, it might be just due to what they see around themselves, the garbage, heaps of garbage and pollution they see, whether that is motivates them, they understand what climate change is and that motivates them, or they just like plants and want to grow a little plant, a cactus or a little plant on their office table. Every little bit helps, and that is what gives me the hope.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Now, so a few years ago, my son was graduating. He was studying in the UK in London, and the family insisted that I should be present for his graduation. It's a big occasion. So when I went to London, and my first thought when I left Karachi was, or before I left Karachi was, hey man, I got to go plant a tree when I'm there. And then I was like, where will I plant a tree? And how will I plant a tree? And the night before I left, I had a meeting with some people, and one of them is somebody who teaches at uh, King's College. And he had somebody who was also visiting from England, and I said to them, I said, no, I want to go plant a tree, man. And he said, oh, that's very easily doable. I have a friend who does gorilla planting, and here's a number, get in touch. Unfortunately, I couldn't plant a tree, but I did definitely get to plant a lot of wildflower seeds and some other regular plants. And that was gorilla planting. We just went and got out of the car with all our stuff, and did a little bit, and then ran out of there. It was in the divider of a road and on the roadside. And I think most of the work that I do, I think the effects of it personally, my own input into the actually on Earth could be minimal, but people who watch me and see what I'm doing and get inspired and join me or do something on their own at home or somewhere around their homes or where they work or where they study. Cumulatively, I feel that, we can get places. I mean, out of the 8 billion people today who are living on Earth, even if 500 million can start working for the planet, it would make a difference. That's what I believe.
Mm.
I want to ask that if we are saying so, climate is changing day by day. So what should we do, and what can we do to change our climate, to change the pollution, to reduce the pollution from the environment and climate?
Madam.
Well, I think you answered the question with it. It comes down to each person taking their own responsibility for the small things that we can do in our daily life. That we can't individually change the big decisions that politicians make. We can't affect the lawmakers individually, but we can take responsibility for ourselves and we can become examples for other people about the incremental small changes that all add up to something big at the end of the day. So it's taking a look at our own personal environment and where we have the agency to make change. And those can be very small things. And I think it's important to focus on small things because the big issues can become very overwhelming and can lead to apathy and lead to passivity. And so it's important to look at where you can make change and who can you affect and focus on what's positive and what's possible in your own life. There's all kinds of ways that we can do something that feels good for ourselves as well, that doesn't feel like work, but it's making a positive change. Whether that's putting some green space into your life, like one small cactus on your table, or changing a few things about how you eat, or looking at your personal transportation. But you can find joy in the work. And that is what keeps you motivated and allows you to focus on what is actually possible.
Yes, absolutely correct. If we will get initiative and we think positive, so absolutely together we can restore our beautiful earth.
Definitely, and we don't really have a choice because, you know, if one of your homes where you're living, if the roof starts leaking, you have an option of leaving that room and going into another room. But if the planet is leaking, which it is, we have no option. So there is no other choice. There is no plan B, there's no planet B, there's planet Earth, and that's it. So we have to. It's not a question of can we and will we or would we or what can or what can't. There is no choice. It has to be done. And when we start doing it at an individual level, from everywhere, save water, save electricity, the 3 R's, I have added a few more. So I always say, reflect, think about it. Do I really need to do this? Do I really need this? So rethink, reflect, and automatically refuse. Say, no, no thanks, I don't want this. And then everything else, so whether reuse, recycle, revamp, and then you can take it all the way, but in everything. So each time you use paper, think about it. Must avoid single-use plastic, 100%. You can wipe it out of your lives. It takes an effort. It causes inconvenience, but that is inconvenience that our parents and maybe we as kids used to take as a matter of fact. There was no polythene bag, but you still brought things home. You just carried in something different. And then once you have a group of people, this is also very important because singularly, we can't change the world. We can take our own steps, but we have to then become a collection of people, and then we can enforce, we can teach people around us, and then once we become strong enough and we have a voice that carries far enough, there is always that pressure that we have to apply, and the pressure will have to be applied because the decisions, I mean, like somebody said that if we stop using fossil fuels to run our equipment, so cars, factories, etc., probably about 50% of the shipping in the oceans would stop because 50% of the ships are carrying oil and coal and gas. And I mean, we know that the the tap we put into the ground as bringing the oil is into the ground. It doesn't come out from the other end and go to some other planet. So these resources are being depleted and will get depleted. So it's not like they are never-ending resource or it's a renewable resource. It's a resource that will die out and will have caused so much damage. Maybe the time when we discovered oil and we discovered gas and we discovered how to use that to run an engine, maybe at that time it was kosher, it was all right. But we should have realized the impact it was causing and brought about this change that we are trying to bring about now. Maybe this change should have been brought about 80 years, 100 years ago. They used to say there is a lot of fish in the sea. No, there isn't. We've eaten all the fish that was in the sea. We've eaten everything. Like I always like, for people to understand, I always say that never has there been a meeting in the jungle called by the lions, where all the lions are collected and say, dude, what's happened, what's happened? He says, you know what, we've eaten all the deer. Never happens. Nature has always kept its balance. We see how in the Masai Mara and the great migrations in Africa, how the wildebeest and the zebra has been crossing those rivers every single year since thousands of years. And the crocodiles have been waiting there because they know it's time, these guys will come and we'll get to eat. And they eat. It's not that the zebras and the wildebeest have stopped going there. They still go there. That is their instinct. That is nature. And that is nature's system to keep a balance in the population of all the different species. Humans, we eat everything. So that becomes a problem. And then we are not satisfied with eating one or two. We want to eat all of it. So the balance has to be maintained. And we have tipped that balance very badly. And it's not up to anybody else. God will come from the sky and make everything, It's not going to happen. God is not going to come down on earth and fix everything for us. He has left us on earth if we believe in that, and then it is for us to regulate things. And He's given us, amongst the animals, He's given everyone an instinct, including us, but He has given us very high intelligence to be able to rationalize what our instincts are and to be able to control them. And that is what we need to do, is use that intelligence that God has provided us, nature has provided us. Sorry.
We also should plant it more and more trees that it cannot be pollution, it cannot be spread pollution. Because what people is doing, they don't think that they are cutting the trees for their own profit, but they are not seeing the bad effect behind it. And if I also want to say to those people who have joined our live session, so if they are not taking any participation in tree plantation, so they should plant the trees near to their home, over to their home, so that can easily take care, so they can easily take care of them.
Yes, it is important for us to plant trees, and maybe 1 trillion trees around the world would make a difference. But if you are standing out in the sun and you hold an umbrella, you are protected from the sun that is hitting your head. But if you're burning a fire by your feet, that umbrella is not going to save you from the heat, because you've got heat coming from the sun and there's heat coming to you from the fire that's burning by your feet. Also, for trees to make an impact on the climate will take anywhere between 25 to 40 to 50 years. Today, we are planting small baby plants. They're baby trees. It's going to take a very long time for them to grow up and become, it's like if there's a lady walking and she's got a baby in her arms and you say, who is this? She's never going to say, this is Dr. So-and-so. He will grow up to be a doctor. Right now, he's a baby. That guy, he ain't a tree right now. He's a small little plant. He will grow up to be a tree. So till he grows up and becomes a tree, and in Pakistan, since the heat wave 5-7 years ago that we had, about 7 years ago, where we lost a very huge number of people died in that heat wave. In the city of Karachi, maybe 1,000, 1,200, 1,300 people died. Forget the rest of the country. People started planting trees. That's just 5 years ago, 7 years ago. Some of them have become big enough for me to stand in their shade, but not big enough to park a car and not big enough to make an impact. So it's going to take time. Whilst we are planting, we must continue planting trees. We must plant creepers on our boundary walls. We must make our roofs go green. And until, I mean, there are little things that you can do. See, people's homes, the rooms just under the roof, they get very hot. So you can plant trees, you can grow plants and vegetables and stuff on your roof. But until all that happens, at least you can use lime and whitewash the roof so that it absorbs less heat and it reflects the heat. So, you know, there are so many things that we can do whilst we are waiting for the trees, because a tree is an umbrella. When you are planting a small plant, you haven't got an umbrella yet. You've decided to go out buy an umbrella. It's a long ways before that tree turns into an umbrella. So whilst we are waiting for that to happen, we have to stop using polythene bags, single-use plastic. We have to stop burning garbage. We have to stop polluting. We have to, and there are certain things which are very big. So you can conserve water in your home, but you cannot stop all that sewage water draining into the sea. So for that, we have to collect, become a voice, and then we have to start insisting that the government changes its ways.
I like this saying very much in English when we say that, you know, a man is wise when he plants trees, although he will never sit in their shade. We have to think about future generations when we're thinking about planting trees, because it's a long process, as you say. But I think what we need to focus on now is not doing, but on the stop doing. If we stopped doing some things, we would get a lot further ahead than if we start adding more things to do. It's the stopping of the single-use plastics, the stopping of relying on fossil fuels, the stopping of many of the habits and activities we've been doing for the past few generations that have got us into this mess, and go back to thinking a little bit more wisely about what's good, not just for ourselves in this generation, but for future generations. This is the tragedy of the commons, no? That we always think that there's going to be another fish. And so if I take one, it doesn't affect the whole, but it does. Each person has a responsibility for what is our common resources for everyone. When we talk about planting trees as well, it's important for shade and for heat, but it's also for soil, to stop soil erosion, no? And this is important when we look at our agricultural lands and food security and these things. I'm not sure what your situation is in agricultural Pakistan, but when you have so much deforestation, there's so much soil erosion, which then creates future problems for agriculture. And planting trees has so many benefits, not just about heat and water, but water retention in the soil. So there's all the nutrients aren't just being washed away to the sea. And it's a long-term process, but every tree counts, every plant counts, but we have to focus on what we have to stop doing as well.
Absolutely agreed, 100%.
I'm also when I'm also the prepared, so they are found everywhere. But in people are cutting trees won't profit. Even they know very well from which, but maybe they are being should avoid these whole things. They are cutting trees and they are so they are cutting. It's coming to the plant, to the earth.
I'm sorry that I can't hear you well to understand the question, but perhaps our other guest speaker can repeat it for me if he could.
Actually, unfortunately, even I didn't catch that. There's a hum in the background.
Yes.
Okay, I'm saying it then. I was they are trees and they are planting more and more trees in their countries. But in Pakistan, the people are cutting trees and they are cutting their own profit. But that how much the basic even they from oxygen. But from these whole things, they should avoid these whole things. Still, I think they are be aware from it and they are doing these whole things. So they should avoid these whole things and they should know that how much trees we are getting, how much profit from trees. They are cutting trees for everything, but these many people they are cutting trees for their own profit.
You know, I see pictures of trees that were cut in the past, whether it was in Canada, it was in the US, it's in Europe, it was in Australia, and some of those trees are of unimaginable sizes. Today, trees of that age just don't exist, and you can count the trees that are a few thousand years old, whereas at one time the planet was covered by them. It's human greed which does that. So even a shopkeeper doesn't think that this tree outside my shop is going to give shade over my shop and might make my shop look nice. What he thinks is that it is blocking the view and people won't see my shop, so he cuts down the tree. There are a lot of stories in folklore about cutting trees. There's even one about George Washington and the cherry tree. So there is famous story of Sheikh Chilli in our literature about the man who sat on the branch and imagined that he would chop all this wood and take it and sell it in the market and buy chickens and they would give eggs and then he would hatch those and they would more chicks and more chickens and more eggs until suddenly the branch he was cutting and he was sitting on cut, snapped, and fell to the ground with him. And he ended up going home all bruised and hurt with no wood to sell. So it is also, it was our first fuel was wood for burning. It was a source for heat, for protection from animals, for light at night, for cooking our food, and it came very naturally to us to cut. And because we don't understand the importance of trees, people who are cutting trees just don't realize the importance of trees. And I feel that maybe we directly, people like me, are responsible for that because we have not got the word across to them. We have not been able to make them understand or convince them. So the message of not cutting trees and why not to cut trees has to go out wider now. There are places where it's just human greed. Some places it's necessity, but you know, if you look at how traditionally, oh, so the women, the men were the hunters and the women were the gatherers, right? Until today, more or less in our villages, that's how it happens. The women go out collecting wood. They never go out with an axe in their hand. They only collect that wood which has fallen, the dead wood which has fallen off the trees. They just collect that and bring it back. They never chopped the wood. So we have to understand how the indigenous people lived, how the primitive people lived. They lived a more sustainable life than we live. And the message has to be taken wider. Everybody, the message must reach every single person, whether in our country or around.
It's true. We understand this academically, and we need to spread the message. But there's two pressures that make this very difficult. And one is the population growth that we've experienced. That the forests aren't getting any bigger, but the population that is trying to use them is greater. And then there's the industrial interests who are then cutting forests at an industrial rate for profit. And nature has not been able to expand its resource potential to meet these two new demands. And so, unfortunately, we have to be more conservative and and do more work to maintain those forests because we're just creating far too much pressure. We can't extract at this rate and expect Mother Nature to put back what it was able to put back before when we used it in a more sustainable way.
Sorry for saying in middle, but sir, Mr. Tofiq Pasha, can you speak in Urdu, because some people who have joined are not understanding. So can you speak in Urdu? So it
Sure.
can.
Would you like me to repeat the gist of what we have discussed just now in Urdu? Would you like me to do that?
Yes.
Yeah?
Some people are
Okay. So क्लाइमेट चेंज के असरात को रिवर्स करने के लिए और हमें उसके असरात से बचाने के लिए कुछ चीज़ों को करना बहुत ज़रूरी है, जिसमें दरख्त लगाना, सब्ज़ा क्रिएट करना बहुत ज़रूरी है, दरख्त लगाना बहुत ज़रूरी है, दरख्तों को कटने से बचाना ज़रूरी है। लेकिन जब आज हम पौधे लगा रहे हैं, इनको बड़ा होने में और असर अंदाज होने में इनको 25 से 40 साल लगेंगे। तो ये मुझे बताइए कि अगर हमारे घर में आग लगी हुई है तो हम क्या बैठे रहेंगे? नहीं, हम फायर ब्रिगेड को फोन करेंगे, और जब तक फायर ब्रिगेड वहां पहुंचती नहीं है तो हम क्या बैठे हुए उसका इंतजार करेंगे? नहीं, हम भागेंगे, बाल्टी लेंगे, थोड़ा थोड़ा पानी मारना शुरू करेंगे, हम आग तो बुझाना शुरू कर देंगे ना, जब तक फायर ब्रिगेड नहीं पहुंचती है। तो उसी तरह जब तक वो दरख्त बड़े नहीं होते हैं, हमें कुछ करने की जरूरत है। और जो मैंने अलग से जो एक बात की कि अगर आप, धूप बहुत सख्त है और आप छतरी लेकर धूप के अंदर खड़े हुए हैं, लेकिन पाँव के पास अपने जूतों के बराबर में आपने आग जलाई हुई है, तो ऊपर की धूप से तो, गर्मी से तो आप अपनी बचत कर रहे हैं, लेकिन नीचे जो आग आपने जलाई है पाँव के पास, उसको तो बुझाएं। तो हमें वो सारे काम करने की जरूरत है जो जिनसे कार्बन की इमिशंस है वो कम होंगी। हमारी जो एक जो हमारी इस वक्त डिस्पोजेबल किस्म की लाइफ हो गई है, हर चीज डिस्पोजेबल हो गई है, एक मरतबा इस्तेमाल करके हम फेंक देते हैं। ये प्लास्टिक की बोतलें होती हैं, प्लास्टिक की थैलियां होती हैं, ये इसके अलावा बहुत सारी हम चीजें करते हैं जिनसे माहौलियाती आलूदगी पैदा होती है, जो क्लाइमेट चेंज, जो माहौलियाती तब्दीली को असर करती है। ये करना हमें बंद करना है, हमने पानी बचाना है। पाकिस्तान को तो पानी का तो बहुत बड़ा मसला है। आज एग्रीकल्चर में हमारे पास इस साल इस फसल के लिए, अभी जो फसल लगनी है उसके लिए हमारे दरियाओं में पानी नहीं है, दरिया सिंध में पानी नहीं है, नहरों में पानी नहीं है, कनालों में नहीं है, बराजों में नहीं है, डैम्स में नहीं है। हमारे डैम्स खाली हुए हुए हैं। پھر کچھ علاقوں میں بہت زیادہ بارش ہو جاتی ہے, کچھ علاقوں میں کم بارش ہو رہی ہے, ڈراؤٹ کنڈیشنز ہو گئے ہیں. پھر اس کے علاوہ ہم جو ہم پانی استعمال کر رہے ہیں اس کو ہم نے بچانے کی ضرورت ہے, صرف گھر میں نہیں لیکن انڈسٹری میں بھی, کمرشل آرگنائزیشنز میں بھی, ایگریکلچر میں بھی. ہمیں بچانے کی ضرورت ہے. ہمیں بجلی بچانے کی ضرورت ہے کیونکہ ہم بجلی تیل جلا کے بجلی پیدا کرتے ہیں. تو وہ بجلی بچانے سے ایک تو ہمارا خرچہ بھی کم ہوگا, ہمارے ملک کا بھی خرچہ کم ہوگا, اور جو کاربن, جو دھواں ماحول میں جو ریلیز ہوتا ہے تیل وغیرہ کوئلہ جلانے سے, وہ بھی کم ہو جائے گا. تو ساری وہ چیزیں جو کاربن فٹ پرنٹ کو بڑھاتی ہیں ان کو ہم نے روک دینا ہے کہ بس اب مت کریں آپ, نو مور. تو ہم نے ہماری زندگی میں چینج لانے کی ضرورت ہے, اور اس میں ہزاروں چیزیں شامل ہو جاتی ہیں. فاسٹ فیشن شامل ہو جاتا ہے. کچھ لوگ ایسے ہوتے ہیں انہوں نے ایک کپڑا لیا, اس کو 1-2-3 مرتبہ پہنا اور پھر اس کو نہیں پہنتے ہیں. ہم کھانا ضائع کرتے ہیں. فوڈ آن دا پلیٹ از تھرون. ہمیں بچت کرنی ہے. ایک زمانہ تھا we used to say کہ پاکستان میں nobody dies of hunger, کوئی بھوک سے نہیں مرتا ہے. we used to point fingers at India that people die there. انڈیا میں لوگ مرتے ہیں, بٹ ناؤ پاکستان میں لوگ مرتے ہیں بیکاز آف ہنگر. امیجن دیٹ, اتنی بڑی دنیا میں اتنا خوراک ہے اور لوگ بھوک سے مرتے ہیں. تو یہ بہت ساری چیزیں ہیں جس پر ہم نے جو ہے ہمیں ڈیلی, ہماری ڈیلی کی زندگی میں ہم نے اس پہ اثر کرنا ہے. اس میں میں آپ کو بتاؤں کہ میں نے ویڈیوز بنائی ہوئی ہیں اور سمپل ہے. دیکھیں, وی کمپلین دیٹ دیر از ہیپس آف گاربیج, بہت سارا کچرا باہر پڑا ہوا ہے. ہو پٹس دیٹ گاربیج اوور دیر؟ ڈو پیپل کم فرام ادر کنٹریز ان اے پلین؟ رات کو پلین آتا ہے, وہ اپنا گاربیج پھینک کر دے گو اوے؟ نہیں, یہ گاربیج ہم ہی پھینکتے ہیں. اگر ہم ہمارے گھر میں گاربیج کی مینجمنٹ کرنے لگیں, ہم سیگریگیشن کریں. پیپر کہاں سے آتا ہے؟ ٹریز آر کٹ, درخت کٹتے ہیں, درخت سے کاغذ بنتا ہے, اور وہ کچرے کی کنڈی پر اٹس برننگ, ہم جلا رہے ہوتے ہیں پیپر کو. درخت جل رہے ہیں, ہمیں وہ روکنا ہے. ہم ہر قسم کی چیز کچرے کے ڈھیر پہ ڈالتے ہیں اور پھر ہم کہتے ہیں بہت سارا کچرا ہے. اٹس فار us to reduce that waste. If we can reduce the waste we create, the garbage heaps will shrink. They will never overflow. And the only thing that should go on the garbage heap is kitchen waste. آپ کے گھر میں سے انینز, پٹیٹوز, سبزی کے چھلکے, فروٹ کا چھلکا, چائے کی پتی, انڈا, اس قسم کی چیزیں کچرے کے ڈھیر پہ ڈالنی چاہیے. دوسرا کچرا نہیں جانا چاہیے وہاں پہ. وہ کچرا نہیں ہے, وہ ری یوزیبل ہے. کاغذ ہے, کارڈ بورڈ ہے. ہم چائے کا ڈبہ کھولتے ہیں, ٹی باکس, وی ٹیک دا لیف آؤٹ, اور باکس کے ساتھ کیا کرتے ہیں؟ ان دا کچرا. That is made from paper. Tree was cut to create that paper. تو ہم نے یہ ساری چیزوں کو دیکھنا ہے. باٹلز, گلاس, پلاسٹک باٹلز, میٹل, ٹن, کینز, they don't belong in the garbage heap. ان کو سپریٹ کریں, سیگریگیٹ کریں اپنے کچرے کو. ہزاروں چیزیں ہیں, چھوٹی 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 چیزیں ہم گھر میں کر سکتے ہیں.
This is the stop doing that we talked about. No, we need to stop doing a lot of things and create incentives for people to recycle and to change their day-to-day personal habits and their household usage of resources.
Absolutely. There is things have progressed greatly in Pakistan. It's not that they haven't. individually and at state level, but at individually and collectively, people are doing a lot. There are groups which are recycling, there are groups which are composting, and every bit counts. If you can save a kilo of kitchen waste going into the garbage heap, and you can either bury it in your garden or you make compost out of it. Today, hundreds of thousands of people are composting and not throwing away their garbage. They're collecting ande ke chilke, eggshells and banana peels. Uh, um, uh, अंडा एग्स उसके छिलके को यू कैन क्रश इट और अपने प्लांट्स में आप डालें, दैट गिव्स यू कैल्शियम. आप बनाना पील लेकर यू ड्राई इट और उसको क्रश करके वो डालें, इट गिव्स यू पोटेशियम. सो this is all food for your plants. um, and you save it from going into the landfill. अब हम तो वो तस्वीरें नहीं देख पाते हैं हमारे जो लैंडफिल्स हैं सुरजानी टाउन वगैरह इधर उधर जो हैं. Look at those garbage, those landfills. They're huge. They're big as cities, and that is destroying the planet.
Yes, absolutely. अगर किसी को मैम रिया से या मिस्टर तौफीक पाशा से कोई क्वेश्चन पूछना है, so they can ask in comment section.
Sure, most welcome. सवाल पूछें, and I'll definitely try and give you a response to it. My belief is that so all the people who have joined in and have watched little or all of this conversation, they're already interested, and that's a positive sign. And today, because pollution and garbage and recycling is taught from kindergarten level, from school level, from the junior level. So by the time these kids come into high school and college and university, they are very aware. And today's younger generation is extremely aware. I mean, I'm holding on to a device which I wish I had when I was young. It would have radically changed my world. But there you are. It's there to change your world. And use it. This is a great asset we've got today. It's a fantastic tool. जो information आपको चाहिए, you don't even have to turn pages. Library में जाने की जरूरत नहीं है. God, we'd have to go to a library and then check out a book and be on time to return it and not to damage it in any way. And today, that information is available. Literally, it's on your fingertips. The person who coined this phrase "on your fingertips" didn't realize what he was talking about, because today it's on your fingertips. Just go tick 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 tick. Even just one finger does enough, and you can research anything in the world, and the answer is available over there. So this is an amazing time. I sometimes think that Confucius cursed us when he said, "May you live in interesting times," and we are living in very interesting times. But also, it's such an advantage. All the information that's available, we can make informed choices in our life. We just have to care enough.
This is the question, because the information is available and has been available for a long time. We know what's happening with climate change and we know where we're going. So how do we reach and influence people who aren't already aware and who aren't already doing what they can for the environment? How do we, it's about making people care. What are your thoughts on how we influence people in this way? A bit more empathy, maybe, a bit more consciousness. The information's available.
Yes, but you see, the common man doesn't quite realize how his actions are affecting his life. All these little bits and pieces that he's doing in his daily routine, he does not connect that with his own life. Climate change, he has still not been able to connect it with his own life. So people who live in rural areas feel it much more. And then when somebody talks to them about climate change, he says, yes, it's true. My wheat crop wasn't so good. It became warm in January. The winters came very late. Now we are having very, very short winters, very short winters. So our wheat crop got affected. This year our mango crop has been affected. Just it is entirely due to climate change. So people in the rural areas, they can see this much more than people in urban areas. And they have to be able to connect the dots and realize that climate. And they have to understand how it affects their lives. Once that connection is made, you've got it. They change.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. People have asked a question in comment section. So
Again, I didn't hear the question. If you could repeat it for me.
I think people are asking the question. Hello.
Sorry, I'm having so much trouble hearing the questions because of the interference in the background.
Yes, I'm saying people are asking the questions in comment
Can you
section.
read out one of the questions?
Yes. Which trees should be planted to help climate change concerning is water consumption and balance? And the
Well,
second
it
one
all depends where you're located. It all depends on where your water resources are like. And then you can make a choice of what are the best trees. But we must try and plant more native trees, or sometimes even the non-native trees can be planted, but it must be intelligently chosen. So if we were doing it in Karachi, you could plant neem, you can plant gulmohar, you can plant mulberry, so it's not only for shade and oxygen, but trees also, as we know, they cool the air, they provide us wood, they give habitat to the birds, they also give food to the birds and insects. So if you can select your variety according to the need of that particular area. So if you've already got 5 neem trees in your street, then don't plant another neem. Plant a bear tree. It will give seed. See, because the squirrel will not eat mulberry. The squirrel will not eat shatut. It needs something that is hard, that it can sink its teeth into. So plant a bear, plant a jamun tree, plant mulberry, so the birds have it, the squirrels have it, the insects have it. So you have to you have to select your trees sensibly, and to get a list of trees and all, uh, you can communicate with me once we are off here, and I'll share a list with you that you can then share with your audience.
Yes. The second question is, can we water on seeds when the soil is dry during sunlight?
Say that again, please.
Yeah, repeat,
Can
please.
can we water on seeds when the soil is dry during sunlight?
Okay, I think this is Taha or somebody has asked. This is a question which is pending from my inbox. Um, you can, but it's preferable if you water it in the morning or in the evening and not when it's very, very hot. So, if your plants are drying out in the middle of the afternoon, that means you have watered it a little less. So, from the next day, from tomorrow, give it a little extra water in the morning so that it remains moist till the evening. Uzair Khan is saying we have known trees called Safeda and Lachi that people use for commercial use as well as being used in government plantation. Yes, people use Safeda, which is the eucalyptus, and Conocorpus has been planted widely. But, you know, when the eucalyptus was brought to Pakistan from Australia, it was brought for a particular purpose. It was brought to be planted in waterlogged areas so that it would remove a lot of the water from the soil. But it was not supposed to be planted everywhere, not in places where there is water shortages. The same with the Conocorpus. It's a tree which grows in waterways. Now, we don't have those waterways. And to look after these trees, we have to uh, um, utilize a lot of water. So we should be looking at trees that need either less water or would be self-sustaining after a few years. So if we use the native trees more, the native tree might need looking after the first 2 3 years to give it an advantage, but then later on it will make do with the amount of water because it has grown, it has evolved for this region which is very arid. And we are specifically talking now about Karachi and say part of Sindh. As you go up north, things change. But even up north, it is better to plant the natives, those which have evolved over time, and nature has provided you, you know. Um, so all around the world, nature provided different varieties of plants and trees, suiting what? Suiting their the water availability, the atmospheric conditions, the weather patterns, and then we go and mess it up. So if I take a date palm is supposed to be in arid regions or dry portions or in deserts. Again, it won't last in a desert. It would only grow in an oasis in a desert. But if you start planting that up in the mountains, um, uh, it won't work. Now, you've asked, we have been planting pine in the north, but that's resulting in annual wildfires. Do you know that wildfires are a part of nature? So many of these pines and other trees, their seed needs to go through that high temperature heat and burn before it sprouts. It also converts a lot of that organic waste into nutrients because there is no other way of getting that nutrient. So that is how nature provides. Wildfires are a part of natural evolution in a forest or a jungle. Um, Human intervention at times increases that. So those are not wildfires. Those are fires that have gone wild, but they have been set off due to human intervention. And a few years ago, there was that huge fire somewhere. Where was it? And they found out that finally they realized that it was somebody who had not put off the campfire. And you know what? When there is a fire in the forest, the animals don't burn normally. They move away.
The fire cycle is even important for a lot of animal life and
Climate
the new
change,
suits and the new plants that
that
come
was
back
resultant to the
afterwards.
climate change, that even the
Yeah.
koalas started burning, poor guys.
Yeah.
But that
In summary, the native species will always be the right answer with an intelligent understanding of the changes we've made to certain ecosystems and conditions. And some kind of diversity might be required when you're planting if the water conditions have changed, if due to human building and city structures, have a different soil conditions than what you had when the original native species were there. But the more we intervene and make changes to the environment, the more difficult it is to then address those problems. Mother Nature knows what's best in those conditions. Again, with the fire cycle, it's a very important part of the life cycle of a coniferous tree to have the high heat to release the seeds. The problem is when we have human-started fires in places where they wouldn't normally be present.
Yes, absolutely.
Do we have more questions in the comment section?
Yeah. Because they're asking, still asking.
okay, I'm back. Sorry, I got.
No troubles. I was trying to read the question, but I don't understand. Where is... They're asking where you've gone.
Then maybe connectivity issue. Hello. Okay, Ria, somebody asked a question. Hello.
The question, please?
Can I read? Yeah. Someone is asking that can we do multiple trees or to balance the trees in such massive plantations to diversify the fallen leaves resulting fires?
Again, I can't speak to what your ecology is in Pakistan because I'm not familiar with it. But my only general comment would be to echo what our other speaker said, that if you're replanting in native species, you can't be making a mistake. And if you're going to be straying away from the native species, then some diversity of species is your best option. But keeping in mind what the soil conditions, the climate conditions are like, and whether that tree is going to survive or not. But your specific limitations in Pakistan, I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with your ecology.
Okay, so I will ask this question from Mr. Tofiq Pasha. So someone is asking that. Sorry.
जी बोले.
Someone is asking that can we do multiple trees or to balance the trees in such massive plantation to diversify the pollen leaves insulting files. Hello.
Um, well, you can. I mean, um, you have to take your cue from nature and see what is best. Um, of course, you can bring about changes now, but we have to ensure that the long term effects of the changes that we are bringing are not going to be detrimental. Now we have to think very hard and very carefully before we do anything because we've already brought about a lot of change on the planet. And you must realize that the planet itself has been evolving and will continue evolving. So our intervention has kind of disturb the balance of that evolution also. And so when we make these changes, it's like so many animals and plants that were introduced in certain areas that were not natives, but were introduced and then in time have turned into invasive species. They may not have been invasive in their own habitat, but when they've been planted in other places or taken to other places, they've
Mm. I think I can continue his train of thought while his technology gets back on track. But no one species is good or bad in one area. It depends on the conditions that are present. And what might be an
Yeah.
invasive species in a new place was the correct species in its original conditions. And so we have to think long and hard before we make a change to something that has been native in an area for millions of years. But once we have intervened and made changes in a natural system, we've upset a balance and it's very hard to get the balance back. So what might have been a native plant at one time can turn invasive when the conditions are different. So it's very hard to correct mistakes that we have made in the past.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. You are correct. I think Mr. Tofiq, Pasha have any connectivity issues, so they have left. And time is also up. I think so. But still, people are asking the questions.
If you have no further questions for me, I'd like to thank you very much for this opportunity to participate in your event.
Thank,
Thank you very much for your interest
thank
in
you.
my opinion. It was a pleasure to hear from the other speaker as well, and always a pleasure to be inspired by your
Yeah,
work.
thank you very much for your
And thank you for everybody who tuned in today to listen, and
thank you
thank you
very
for
much
doing your part for
for
the
your
environment.
time for us. Thank you very much. It's mean a lot that you joined this live. Thank you very much again.
I'm happy anytime, and please continue your work. It's such a
Yeah,
pleasure to
me
watch
too.
and to see you on Instagram. Okay, goodbye to everyone.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. See you again. Should I? हमने जो है मैमरिया के और मिस्टर तौफीक पाशा के ब्रीफिंग सुनी और ख्यालात सुने कि किस तरह जो है हम अपने अर्थ को जो है पोल्यूशन से हम कैसे हमारे अर्थ को रिस्टोर कर सकते हैं, बिकॉज टुगेदर वी कैन रिस्टोर आवर ब्यूटीफुल अर्थ. इफ यू नो व्हाट, पोल्यूशन हम कैसे जो है अपने पोल्यूशन को रिड्यूस कर सकते हैं. बिकॉज अगर हम देखें, अगर मैं अपनी बात करूं तो मैं खुद भी अगर आउटसाइड जाती हूँ या कहीं कोई मार्केट एरियाज में जाती हूँ तो मुझे बहुत सारी प्लास्टिक की जो शॉपर्स हैं, प्लास्टिक रैपर्स हैं जो देखने को मिलते हैं. सो इफ वी विल गेट इनिशिएटिव और हम अपने आप को ये काम करने से रोकें कि दिस इज नॉट गुड because this result is coming good, this result is coming bad, and it's very bad effect so for our future, for our environment. So we should avoid these all things, and we should start we should start these all things like we should start to use of cotton bags, except we should not use the plastic bags because अगर हम ये देखो तो हर जगह पे प्लास्टिक का यूज हो रहा होता है. So we should avoid these all things, and we should also avoid to cutting the trees. अगर हम ज्यादा से ज्यादा दरख्त उगाएंगे तो ये हमारे लिए फ्यूचर में, अपकमिंग फ्यूचर जो है उसका रिजल्ट गुड आएगा और ये हमारे लिए अच्छा साबित होगा. सो थैंक यू वेरी मच फॉर योर प्रीशियस टाइम कि आपने हमें ज्वाइन किया, हमारी लाइव सेशन को ज्वाइन किया. एंड आई होप कि ये जो लाइव सेशन स्ट्रीम है ये आपके लिए बहुत ही इंफॉर्मेटिव होगी. एंड थैंक यू सो मच. स्टे ट्यून्ड. अल्लाह हाफिज.